What is good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. And before I get things started, I'd like to give a shout out to all of the members of the Green Gorilla channel, and I'm going to give off or send off a round of applause for them. Thank you so much for supporting the Green Gorilla channel. Yes, I want to give a shout out to Issa Abdul Zahir, Anthony Taylor, Camp Lowe, Deshaun Nolly, Ab Media 83, Aaron Lloyd, Leroy Honeycutt, MLR, Julius Ferguson, Charles Rogers, Black Dog, Brother Love, Ryan Jackson, Infamous Chillin', Randall, Universal 178, Black Swerve 404, Rashid Barnes, Aaron Smith, Walt Diddy Show, DH, See Truth the Revelator, Gold Professor, The Nameless Protagonist, Black Pill Ned Stark, Arthur Unknown, Odd Collard, Roderick Jackson, Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Damon Harris, Brian Williams, Kalan Jakala, Sherrod Martin, Ricky Dawson, NEU, Cedric Bowman, True 7360, BK Born Shaheed, James Washington, Hostile Adept, Seventh Coast Dojo, Ronan Martin, Shop Talk Live, WPR1, Rogish the Buildmonger, I Care, Force Windu, Lady Miss Thing Green, BGS Ibmore, and Marvin Battle Jr. Thank you so much for being members of the Green Gorilla channel. Thank you. Yes, thank you for being members of the Green Gorilla channel. I really appreciate all the support and the help that you provide. Thank you. So today, what I want to do is skip some of the other stuff that I do before I get my show started and just introduce the guest that I have here today to help hold this discussion that I want to have. And it's about black men being under attack. Because everywhere we look and everywhere we turn, it seems that black men are to blame for something or the other, right? And whether this applies to politics, whether it applies to what goes on in the home or in dating life, whether it applies to what takes place in the university, there's always a way to lead culpability back or trace culpability back to the source, which is black men. So I would like to introduce to the stream Dr. Zakiya Sankara-Jabar. How you doing this evening? Can you hear me?
Well, yeah, I was just coming off of mute. I appreciate it, but I'm actually not a doctor. But thank you so much. You know, it's all good. People oftentimes think I have a PhD. You know, because the level of my conversation and critique oftentimes is, I guess people think I have a PhD, but I don't.
Oh, it's all to the good. But, you know, we don't give a damn about that shit here anyway.
Right.
You know, because we just keep it real here. This is the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight
Absolutely.
up, no chasers. So, I mean, everything is on the table. We don't believe in the politics of respectability here. Okay?
I appreciate it.
So, having said that, but you are a person who has ties to the educational community.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And not only that, you've also worked with people in the political sphere. So just give us a little bit about your background and why you are someone who has some sort of level of expertise in the conversation we're about to delve off into.
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, I'll try to give a short synopsis. So I am a mother, a wife. I'm an organizer, organized specifically poor and working class Black folks, lived in Ohio most recently for over 20 years, and then relocated to suburban Washington, D.C., which is where I reside now. And so, you know, my dedication is clearly, you know, to the masses of our people. I have seen across the country, because of the work that I do professionally, I'm a professional advocate, and so I work as a policy advocate in different spaces, but particularly when it comes to education policy around student outcomes, particularly for Black children, school to prison pipeline, criminalization of Black parents as they try to advocate for their children, and everything in between when it comes to education pre-K through 12. I have a huge win under my belt as a professional organizer back in Ohio. I actually worked with the Republican Senate because we had to, for people who don't understand politics. And I'll explain a little bit of that, as you mentioned, because the criticism that Ice Cube and Killer Mike and all those kind of folks were getting, to me, it was not warranted. It is not warranted because for folks who actually do this work, And if you are living in a place where you have to deal with politics as in terms of getting laws changed, then you have to deal with whoever is in power. And so clearly Ice Cube was clear about that to me, in all of his media appearances, as well as Killer Mike. I mean, Killer Mike is a citizen of Georgia. He's obviously a businessman. He owns several businesses. So the fact that people were upset because he met with the governor of Georgia, who was a Republican, to me was a sign of political immaturity, and also just a sign that we want to control the agency of Black folks, Black men, and Black professionals, and in whatever way they seem to want to advocate. I have a different experience because when I went to our state representative in Ohio, who was a Black Democrat, to get this person to introduce a bill that would end criminalizing Black children pre-K through third grade in Ohio, this particular legislator would not do it. And it's because there's a connection to the teachers' unions, and teachers' unions oftentimes donate to the political campaigns of Democrats. This is a political analysis that most people don't understand, kind of how the sausage is made and who is on what side. So unions 9 times out of 10 support Democrats. And so that doesn't always mean that's in the interest of Black people. That's what I think I really want the listeners to understand. Like, you understand politics, none of these people are for us and our material conditions. To the contrary, it was a white Republican in the Ohio Senate who did take our case, ironically. And keep in mind, the organization that I founded is all Black. To this day, it's all Black staff, all Black board. It's all about Black people. We're very clear. Our mission is about Black people. It's not people of color. So I completely identify with Ice Cube. It's not about, and not that we, are anti anybody else. It's like what Malcolm X said. It's about, okay, we need to organize ourselves and get our house in order. That's how I view it, right? My priority is Black people, is my people. So once we organize ourselves, then sure, we can work in coalition with other people on common interests. But on that particular issue, that's an issue that disproportionately impacts Black children and Black parents. So we were clear when we even met with the Republican legislator. We didn't change who we were. There's no way. I have photos of us sitting, around the table of all Black parents and our children across from this white woman, educating her about what we were experiencing because of the laws of the state of Ohio, including the Ohio zero tolerance law that targeted Black people. And so we use that as leverage with this particular legislator. She also had the power, and this is also about like power analysis. A lot of people don't understand civics. So this particular legislator was also the Senate Education Chairwoman. So when you're elected to a body in any state and even the federal level, there's committees. So she's on the Senate Education Committee, and she was the chair, meaning the party that has control gets to appoint the chair. And so she had the power to say what's going to come for a hearing, what we're going to move out for a hearing, and really what's going to eventually become a bill or not. I learned all of that through the process. I did not know when I started advocating that I would have to do all of that, and I would have to talk to all these white Republicans. And it was a very interesting experience. At the end of the day, it took us about 3.5 years to get the bill fully done. Because as you can imagine, it is Ohio. So there are other Republicans who are not as interested in hearing from Black people because they represent other parts of the state. There's hardly any Black people, and they just don't give a damn about our issues. So it just wasn't of interest to her colleagues. But because she represented the Dayton area, and the city was a part of her district, she, to her credit, listened to us, and she stayed in constant contact with our organization. When it was time to have interested party meetings, we were notified to bring our people. And here's the thing, oftentimes we would be the only Black people in the room when it was time to make the bill. That's the other thing, is that I get frustrated with politics because they tell Black people, vote, 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 vote. We literally know nothing else about the process. Like, we don't even know that when there's a bill getting made that's going to impact our lives, that we should have people in the room to either educate the legislators about it, push back on it. Like there's so many different things where, unfortunately, the paid advocacy organizations in our community, the longstanding civil rights organizations, have unfortunately not been representing the interests of our people for most of the time. And again, I say that from experience. Because I founded my organization, which is called Racial Justice Now in Ohio, because when I went to the local NAACP and the local Urban League, they either couldn't or wouldn't help me. So I organized and started my own organization. And so that's why you'll hear me advocate so much for grassroots leadership, and to cultivate and to fund grassroots leadership. Because current quote unquote civil rights, old guard, if you will, leadership is not in the business of representing the interests of the masses of Black people. And I say that from experience and not to upset anybody. But that's that's a very long-winded way to share a little bit about my political acumen, political expertise. It's also why I actually identify as an independent now. I was a Democrat for a very long time. As you can imagine, as we see in elections, most Black people vote Democratic. And I came from a very active family within the Democratic Party in the state of Ohio. So in high school, and, I was a part of all of these different, organizations that were working directly with the party. I learned a lot, and I'm happy to expand on that at some point as well. But I just saw a lot, and I saw that they were not really for Black people at the local level, at least in Dayton, Ohio, they are not.
That's good, man. So, I mean, people get to see who you are, what you've worked on, and your level of expertise. And I've always said this, and it's just my strong opinion that right now we're in the same political mode as the civil rights leaders of old. And for the most part, what I call it, or how I identify it, is racial custodial politics. It's like you got this old guard group of politicians, and they stay in office for life. It's like it's a post that they think that they're appointed to, like a judge,
It's an
or like
elite circle.
yeah,
Yeah.
or they assume that they're supposed to be in these positions like someone who's a tenured professor at a university, and
Mm-hmm.
they assume that because they have done the kind of work in the past that was commensurate with them being respected at that time, that it translates into into them being able to hold that position indefinitely and to advocate and to represent Black people indefinitely. And as far as I'm concerned, that's not representative politics, to assume that you have a right to a lifetime appointment and you really don't actually engage or inform the public about what's going on in the legislatures that you're a member of, right? You don't have any kind of grassroots connection. You almost serve as a political expert and use top down theorizing in order to determine what is best for the masses of Black folks. That's just an inverted way of perceiving
Oh no, it's
democracy.
very elitist. And to be quite honest with you, most of these old guard, quote unquote, civil rights organizations have already been co-opted by the Democratic Party. So they're not going to advocate, which is why I couldn't get, and I learned later, that's why I actually couldn't get help from my local NAACP, is that, oh, well, the teachers union is supposed to be our friend. We can't really go against this. And so a lot of times, again, you have people in our community suffering, and the so-called civil rights organizations are silent. I'll give you another example that I saw out of California just yesterday, and how, you know, the gig economy, Uber and Lyft, there was a proposition on the ballot that would have allowed a bill that was passed into law by the California legislature to require Uber and Lyft to not 1099 their employees, but have them actually as employees and pay benefits and make them more accountable and on the hook for people's lives who are driving for them. They paid the NAACP, the president of the California NAACP, whichever organization represents Latinos out there and whichever organization represents Asians out there. I literally saw that on a tweet, and that's how they defeated the referendum, because California is, I don't usually like this language, but it's majority minority. It's like not majority white. It's like majority quote unquote people of color in the realest sense of the word, like Black, Asians. There's lots of Asians out there. There's lots of obviously Latinos. And so they literally paid off the leadership of the community to tell the community to vote a certain way, and it was in their best interest. So
Yeah.
that's why I believe in popular education. That's why I believe in political education and organizing people around their own self-interest. Race is not the only indicator. Class is a big, and elitism, even within our communities, is a huge issue that we have not dealt with seriously at all.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. Um, People who are college educated and people who go on to get advanced degrees, they feel like they're technocrats and they know what's best for the black community. They know what's best for the little people in the black community, I guess is how they would
Right.
regard them, right? So, I mean, as they work their way up through the ranks in college, and then they become members of elite organizations in college, and then they use those kind of networks after they matriculate to graduate school, and then they go on to use those networks, you know, and even further networks and organizations that they become members of in the
Right.
context of their political or professional organizations or associations that they belong to, and
Hmm.
you know they kind of protect each other, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with it as long as they understand that they're supposed to be bridge building to the community as well. But to the extent to which they don't understand that they're also supposed to serve as bridge builders and they're supposed to provide utility and service to the community, then they err. You know, politics shouldn't be professionalism. It should be you come in, you serve the public for a particular period of time, then you go off and do your business elsewhere. I don't think that,
Hmm.
you know, that's why I believe in term limits as it pertains to politics as well. I don't think that
Yeah,
you should have people just kind of like nesting
I agree.
within political roosts,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden, you know, they feel like they're entitled and then, you know, they have something to preserve within the domain of the political. But,
Hmm.
you know, trying to get out of that kind of rut
Right.
would be given, you know, that you got all these fat cats at the state and at the federal level, and even in municipal levels, you see the same kind of thinking, you know, taking place. Because there's some people who are mayors of cities and have been there like damn near a decade. You know what I'm saying? So, um, but what I'd like to do though is talk about politics and politics relative to black men. I know you kind of mentioned Ice Cube, Killer Mike, and so on and so forth. But like black men are just, we generally, I mean, you're a woman. I mean, I know you don't speak for all women, and you're a woman who, from time to time, has defended black men, and I've seen this, right? Because we're Facebook friends, and you know, we kind of like each other's posts here and there and stuff like that. So, um, my question is like, why is it that over and over again, especially as it pertains to election cycles, right? But I mean, it often takes place elsewhere as well, though. Why are black women consistently attacking black men, calling them sexist? I mean, saying, you know, things that are deprecating about us, namely that you know, that we want to be white people. Like, what is going on? Like, I'm trying to avoid using a negative epithet, but like, what's really going on? Like, why are we consistently being called the white people or black people, right? Because you would think
That
that,
actually wasn't black women that wrote that, unfortunately. That was some brothers over at what they call very smart brothers. But I'm with you. Yeah, keep going. What's the rest of the question?
yeah, yeah. So I do know that Damon wrote this, but this sentiment transcends him and his musings about it
Absolutely.
in his particular, you know, little form that he has with the root. But like the very idea that black men want to reproduce or imitate white patriarchy has been a long-standing claim. I kind of even went over this last night on the show I just had because there was a rift between an American Woman Suffrage Association, and the rift was about whether or not black men should be shoehorned into enfranchisement before that of all women. And you know, of course, United States is just a patriarchal nation. It's a racist, patriarchal, sexist, classist, you know, nation. It is what it is. Okay, but there were a group of women in particular, you got Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony,
Yep.
and a whole, and you had some black women that they had signed on to their organization, Sojourner Truth. They had even had Harriet Tubman and a few others who were members of this organization, and they were dead set against the idea of black men, being able to receive the franchise if they also were not if they were not able to receive the franchise. And so this created this rift, right, between black men and black women at this time. So the idea is like, wait a minute. If it is the case that white men are ready to extend the franchise to black men, why is it assumed that black men are trying to imitate white patriarchy? Because we already know what white patriarchs have done. I mean, they ushered in colonialism, then they ushered in the slave trade, and after that they ushered in Jim Crow and a whole host of other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the idea is, why is there this assumption amongst black women that all black men have is a motivation to reproduce what white men have done throughout the world? And black men, I know black men. I've never heard black men sit around and say, "Well, we need to find a way to enslave white people." I've never heard this kind of conversation. I've heard people say we need to find a means by which to defend against it by any means necessary. But I've never heard a group of black men sit around and have conversations about how great it would be to enslave entire populations of people and how to carve out or colonialize entire continents. So where's all this vitriol coming from? Like, for real, like you have an insider ear. Where the fuck is this coming from?
Yeah, I mean, so let's be really clear. I mean, I know it's in popular culture now, like with some celebrities who have adopted, some women celebrities and some men actually have adopted this. It's a feminist trope, is what I call it. However, the majority of Black women, especially, we keep in mind, I told you I'm a grassroots organizer. And so the majority of Black women in communities, who are in communities, in houses, in relationship with Black men, don't hold that view. And I think the loudest voices, right, who have access to capital, back to the class issue, who oftentimes have PhDs and other kinds of higher education, they have been socialized in a way uh, against their own people, their own men, at the college level, has been my experience. Actually, I want to share this experience because like a lot of people, when you're in college, you take liberal arts classes, right? You take African American studies, women's studies, and I took those classes. And I remember, and this was way before I was as politicized as I am now. But I remember taking a women's studies class. The professor was a white woman. And I remember arguing with that lady most of the semester. And I would just push back on a lot. And this was 10 years ago now or more, right? And I can imagine sitting in the classroom now. It's probably 10 times worse with the kind of shit that we're seeing on social media. This was way before social media, right? And I was sitting in her class, and I remember I would oftentimes push back on her, and she would always quote bell hooks to push back on me. And I would say, well, I don't know who that person is, but this just is not my experience. This is just not the experience of the women that I know in my family. And so I thankfully found Africana womanism, because I never identified, like, ever just in my spirit, with feminism, Black feminism, white feminism, purple feminism, none of it. Because I always saw it as a bifurcation and a tugging away of the men that I love in my family. And so you're talking to a woman who was very close to her brothers. One of my brothers passed away several years ago, and I'm still to this day devastated by that. He's like my best friend, right? You talking to a Black woman who loves her Black husband. I have a Black son. I was politicized because my Black son was targeted in preschool for the school to prison pipeline at 3 years old. I'm the wrong one, And so when I found Africana womanism, and when I began to read more African-centered scholarship, I just have never been in that camp. And it's because I have read African-centered scholars such as Marimba Ani. And oftentimes when I get into it with these Black feminists, they've never heard of women like that. They've never heard of Marimba Ani. Sometimes, most of the times now, since she's passed away, they've heard of Frances Cress Welsing, but they've only heard of Frances Cress Welsing because people like Martin Lamont Hill did not let her get cold in the ground before he wrote a scathing critique of her and her work. And so people in the popular culture now know who she is because she passed away. And all of these Black liberals out of the academy wrote really horrible things about this Black woman, right? And when I read people like Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu, the book that politicized me and sent me down the deep hole, as they say, the rabbit hole, was Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys.
Right. Yeah, I'm familiar with that book. I mean, it's an old one.
It's an old book, but it was relevant in 2011 when I was experiencing that with my son in school.
Yeah.
And so it was from that book that, as you know, you continue, because he referenced other authors. He referenced Asa Hilliard. Come on, The Maroon Within. Like, these Black liberals ain't talking about that. They don't even know who Jacob Carruthers is, right? Like, so I'm one of those sisters that's very deeply committed to African-centered epistemology and scholarship. I believe in Black scholarship, right? I identify as an Africana woman is because it's a family-oriented ideology that focuses on the dynamic of relationship between men and women of African descent, period, right? You know, it's deeply rooted in our culture and Afrocentrism and African centered life experiences and desires and aspirations. I see us as a unit. I'm not into the bifurcation. So an attack on the Black man, from my perspective, is an attack on me.
Right.
And most Black feminists, actually, you see it on social media, it's a divestment movement. Like, they literally talk this very, it's anti-Black misandry. I mean, this very harmful rhetoric by the men that they birth. And oftentimes I'll say things like that just from a psychological perspective, like, do you understand that your language is, and some of them have sons, some of them even married to Black men. It's wild. And I'll say, do you understand that the language and the narrative that you're putting out on social media actually creates a toxic environment for your husband and your son? It creates the environment for the George Floyds of the world.
Yeah, but I think that a decision was made in the early 70s that kind of toxicity was acceptable in order for them to achieve or to ultimately attain their political goals.
Clearly, it's financially rewarding. I'll be honest with you. I learned maybe about a year ago, because you never see or hear her reference them, but Kimberly Crenshaw actually married to a Black man with a Black son. I had no idea.
Yeah, I had no idea. But I try not to really look at people's personal lives unless they make it obvious, and it kind of.
But I thought that's interesting. Like, most people who know me and my work, like, they know that I'm married. They know that I have children. Like, because like that's me. That's a part of me. It's a part of my body politic, right? Like, yeah. Right. Anyway.
What the funny thing is, though, like, look, I've been in education for quite a bit of time, and so look. I know for a fact that most white feminists, most of them, they're married. They have husbands at home.
Men, yes.
But it's funny though,
Ruth Bader Ginsburg was the feminist icon.
But it's funny to me because most of these women, they're so anti-Black male, and they're so independent that they don't need men. And but
that's
the people who they follow,
women, but these white feminists got men.
They have husbands. They don't just have men, they have husbands.
Right.
They're locked in, and they pass on generational wealth to their children. And they stick together. Like the institution from which I graduated, there was a woman who was the head of the gender studies program, and her husband was a masculinist study scholar. I mean, it just goes to show you how they use these kind of ideologies to their political and their economic gain in such a way that, I mean, they'll take off the mask and put it back on when it serves their purposes or interests.
You talking now, and we don't even recognize the manipulation. That's the other part that, so the work of like Bobby Wright and Wade Noble, I don't think we give enough credit to African thinkers and psychologists. And shout out to Dr. Patricia Newton. We just lost her now about a month ago now out of Baltimore. She was also a psychologist, and Dr. Frances Cress Welsing was one of her mentors. But we don't usually get that kind of analysis of like how to understand white manipulation. What's the brother's name? I have his book. He taught down in Virginia. I believe you're in Virginia, but he taught at what's the HBCU in Virginia in Richmond?
Man, I don't know. I can't remember. Can't recall.
Yeah.
There's so
But
many damn schools. But
yeah,
yeah.
but it's the HBCU in Richmond, Virginia. I'm just losing the name of it. Anyways, his name is Dr. Cambone, and he wrote a lot also about like how to understand, different manipulation tools and tactics of Europeans and how we are socialized and used against each other a lot of times. So like I've studied that work. And so for me, it's like I'm able to read the room, like I'm able to read, who these people really are. VCU, thank you. That's
Yeah,
it.
I was looking for it. I thought it
Yeah.
might have made it. You might make a
Yes,
connection somewhere.
VCU in Richmond. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But Dr. Cambone, I would encourage your listeners to really check out his work. He has a wonderful. He was a psychologist, a black psychologist, and he wrote several books have been very influential within the Association of Black Psychologists organization, which obviously was founded by Wade Nobles and Naeem Akbar and others. So I can't be against black men at all. I mean, I'm too connected, I'm too connected to all the scholars, and so much love and respect, for their work, real work, folks who are literally trying to build black sovereignty and black power in relationship with black women. So yeah, I don't identify, I can't give you a reading of their mind other than I will say that some of them, and I know this personally, some of them have politicized failed relationships with black men. They have politicized the whole, black men are trash or whatever because they politicize hurt feelings or failed relationships. I know that's a huge part of it. And so white people exploit that emotional part of it to, organize some of these sisters. The picture that you have on here is actually of the sister
Brittany
Brittany
Cooper.
Cooper. Jesus Christ, she's on another level. I mean, she really gets all of her validation from white people. Clearly, like I mean, all of her, her money, all of that. Like she's clearly, and then for them
David.
to focus on black men, yeah, like number one, black men are the most disenfranchised in the country when it comes to the vote because of felon disenfranchisement laws. And then black men only make up 6%, and that's who you want to focus on? It's questionable.
Yeah. So what she basically says is, and I guess the woman who wrote the article, her name is Ann Brown, and she says, popular Democratic professor, if black men question Democratic Party rulers, they are rogue and like incels. And so the problem I have with this, of course, is because, you know, I'm a democratic theorist. I'm a philosopher and a democratic theorist. I believe in deliberative democratic theory. I don't think voting is the culmination of what democracy is. I think that voting is a process that takes place after people deliberate, and have prolonged and protracted discussions about what it is that they should do as a group. That's how I perceive democracy, as a conversation, as a discourse, right? Not necessarily as just a voting process where you tabulate the fixed interest of consumer-like citizens. That's not how I view democracy. Okay, so to see it, presented in this fashion, and then to have someone say, "Well, if people don't follow the democratic,
It's so
leadership
crazy. Yeah.
blindly without having any, knowledge or foresight of why they're choosing what they're choosing," it's almost as if these people are doctors, and the black masses are their patients, and they have to do what these people say. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand the mindset, because it seems anti-democratic to me, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't seem to fall in line with the grassroots organizing that took place during the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, or during the Black Lives Matter movement. But I have my own viewpoints on Black Lives Matter, because I think that Black Lives Matter was a part of the non-for-profit industrial complex, and they kind of
Mm-hmm.
stamped their own brand on top of something that was more organic and something that was more grassroots based. But
Mm-hmm.
but
But
ultimately,
I wanted to go back to this really quickly, because I made a mistake, but I wanted to make sure I brought this up because I didn't want to bring up this dear elder's name and not give the proper information, because I want your listeners, if they'd like to go and check this out. So his name was Dr. Kobe, spelled with a K, Kobi, Kazembe Kambon, and he was an educator and psychologist, and he actually taught at Florida A&M. So I'm sorry, it was another HBCU. I was at a conference at VCU with the Association of Black Psychologists where I actually brought his book. Now, his magnum opus book, which is huge, it's kind of like Amos Wilson's Blueprint for Black Power. But this book is called African Black Psychology in the American Context, an African-Centered Approach. And that book, like, man, I'm not even done reading it, but it goes in depth. I mean, and it really gives you clarity. Like this question that you're asking me, it gives you clarity. The other book that he wrote is called Cultural Misorientation. So that's one of his theories, his psychological theories about what impacts Black people in this Eurocentric, white, racist context in the United States. So those are two books that I would recommend your listeners to check out, and just recommend them check out. He's an ancestor now. He died in 2018. But Dr. Kobe, spelled with a K, Kambon is also spelled with a K, Kambon. Wonderful ancestor. A lot of people don't even know about all of this amazing scholarship out there, but I wanted to make sure your listeners knew who he was.
you know, the funny thing about it is, and you know, I think I'm gonna do a show about this at some point.
Mm-hmm.
That the Black Studies departments that you see at the universities all throughout the United States, when they were first founded, they were founded by the radicalism of Black students,
Yeah,
and
they've been watered
primarily these students were Black nationalists,
down. Mm-hmm.
and that was their orientation. But
Right.
so you had people like Muala Karinga, Molefe Kefe, Asante. I mean, you had a whole host of Black scholars who were in these Black studies programs,
Mm-hmm.
and nationalism was their center, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the kind of scholarship that you hear, like
It's
K.
completely
Kimboni.
integrationist now. The fact that we went from Black Power to Black Lives Matter is an indication of how far we regressed.
Yeah, so it's not about nationalism anymore. It's
Mm-mm.
more about integrationism. It's more about
Not for me, but yeah.
assimilationism, and
Mm-hmm.
so all the radicalism has been sapped out of the Black Studies departments. I can't say all the way because I'm pretty sure there's some vestiges still there. But I
There's some
mean, right?
vestiges. Yeah, they shit. They on their way out. Like I'll say, like Greg Carr. I mean, he cool. I know he's a little bit mainstream, but like Mario B.D. Howard. If you don't know Valethia Watkins, oh my God, she was the one that really helped me put language to how to fight back against these Black feminists. Are you familiar with Valethia Watkins and read any of
Yeah,
her work?
yeah, yeah. I'm
I
I'm, I'm
love her.
familiar with her work.
So Mario Beatty is her husband. So like I know them through ASCAC, through these Black organizations, Association for Classical African History. ASCAC, my husband and I are members of that as well. But that's where we know like the Valethia Watkins and Mario Beatty, who are some of the last few like really African-centered scholars that's in the HBCU.
Yeah, so we're gonna leave some links in the description so that you can have access to these people's work. But I mean, ultimately, there was a choice in the early '70s between going the Black nationalistic route or going, the kind of like the neo form of feminism, like the second wave feminism route amongst black women.
Right.
And overwhelmingly, what you see is the outgrowth. I mean, because not all women at the time made the decision to go with,
Fannie Lou Hamer was famously one of those women. There's a quote with her saying, "Mm-mm."
Yeah. She was like, I don't need to be
I don't
separated
want to
from
be
my husband. My husband is
separated.
6'3", weigh 240 something pounds. I don't
That's
need to be
right.
separated from my man. All I want to do is have access to the American dream just like everybody else.
That's right. For me and him, not just for me. I don't
Yeah, but
understand this shit. Like for black women, like no, it's like, what about the collective? Like, what about all of us?
Yeah, and so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a show to try to talk about the time in which there was this transition
Mm-hmm.
between, because as you see the ascendancy of certain figures in the of African American Studies department, well, Harvard is a very important department because you kind of see the foreshadowing there of what was to come
They
at other
literally
places.
used Henry Louis Gates to try to delegitimize John Henry Clark and and Dr. Ben. They
Ben
literally used
Yakinen,
him.
yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately, and then you get people like Kwame Anthony Appiah, and just a whole host of people who come along, and then they displace these black nationalist scholars who
right.
are basically perceived as being, regressive because whatever
Essentially.
kind of, they're racist,
Right.
essentialists, they're the homophobic, just a whole host of negative
Oh yeah, that's
epithets.
a big one. That's what
Yeah,
they call John Henry Clark and Dr. Ben. That that's actually what Mark Lamont Hill said about Francis Cress Welsing, as you know.
yeah. So I mean, look, my whole thing is to understand things in their proper context, and to not displace, people's arguments out of context. And I just recently posted a video. It wasn't a live video, but it was a video of Francis Cress Welsing talking about black people being at war and how black men are being emasculated, and how the
Ooh.
very idea that you need to have strong so-called patriarchal, so-called toxic black men, like, there's, to me, I'm just going to be honest. What there is a leveling of every embodiment of masculinity to one acceptable kind. Namely,
Mm.
that like black masculinity has to be a soft, a kind of like
Yeah, I think
emotional
that's a
and a
part of the pushback
caring.
on Ice Cube too, is because he's one of those masculine, like he's clearly very masculine. There ain't no questions about like who he is, kind of thing, and the way he presents himself is the kind of masculinity that a lot of these blue checks and others. I think that was a part of the energy that you saw against him. That was certainly a part of it.
Yeah. So I mean, but my idea is, look, my viewpoint on this whole issue is, look, if you gay, you're gay. That's on you. If you choose to live a lifestyle as an effeminate man, that's on you. Do you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't stop you from doing you. It's a free country. You can do whatever the hell you want to do. I mean, it's as free as it is for us. Okay? But don't use your sexuality as a weapon against other black people. And that's what I see being done.
Yeah,
And,
and shout
and
out to Cleo Monago who doesn't do that. I don't know if you know that brother, but yeah, I know Hassan has had him on his show sometimes. But shout out to Cleo because he's clear about that. He doesn't even use the language gay. He doesn't use LGBT, but he's a same gender loving black man, and he's very clear about how the white LGBTQ community and movement tries to use black LGBT, or I forget all the language, but the black people who have different sexual identities, I will say, because you get in trouble for saying preferences. So identities, whatever. I can't keep up with the language, but I'm not trying to be offensive. So, I think again, I have to go back to the fact that of the manipulation and the cultural misappropriation and how we understand how the enemy works. Like, one of the things that I found in organizing, brother, is that we don't use psychology very much in our organizing work. Like, I remember when I first read Amos Wilson and Bobby Wright, I was like, oh my God, like we need to be using this in how we organize our people. Like, we need to be able to recognize, when white people are manipulating us, or when whoever is manipulating us and trying to extract something from us, like voting, and then we don't get shit in response. I mean, in return, right? So that's one of the things that I keep going back to, even in this whole gender war. All of that shit is psychological. All of it is manipulation. All of it is about control. All of it is about keeping us divided.
yeah, so my whole thinking about it has been, that whether we like it or not, we live in an ecosystem and we're interconnected, we're interrelated. And abstraction will prevent you from being able to see this. And,
Mm-hmm.
but we're working at cross purposes. Now,
Mm-hmm.
but my viewpoint though is, though, if you I'm just gonna keep it real with you though, Zakiya. If you say fuck me and you call me trash and you tell me I ain't shit, and you continuously put out the negative energy out there, they're like, well, I don't need a man. Fuck y'all. We gonna roll with these white people. You know, sooner or later, I'm gonna be like, well, fuck you too. I mean, I just don't like. I mean, that's. I'm not trying to be ignorant by saying that, but like that's where black men are now. I'm like, okay, well, if it's fuck me, it's fuck you. I hate to go there with it, but I don't feel any other alternative. If you continuously berate me, and see, here's the thing that's happening. These people aren't coming to us saying what they have a problem with. They're throwing salt on our name in the public again and again and again and again. So they're redressing their grievances with white people.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, so it's like, hold on, wait a minute, man. You don't have to kick my name in the dust in order to get your point across. You got a problem with me, bring your problem to me. But see, what they do is they triangulate. This is like a fucking little kid, you know, playing games with two parents or some shit like that. Like, if you got a problem with me, you need to be woman enough or whatever the fuck you are. You need to be able to come to me and tell me what your problem is. Instead of trying to throw salt on my name and then use that as a means by which to gain some sort of, you know, little bonuses or little gifts or boons from these white folks. You know what I'm saying? Which is what I see occurring again and again and again and again. Now, ultimately, man, you know, it ain't just Brittany Cooper though, because it's not just these because of what's ultimately ended up happening is these kind of sentiments, because they've become popularized and they've been filtered into popular culture. Now they have become part and parcel of popular culture.
Oh yeah, definitely. You see it a lot now.
And so like if you turn on your television, you're seeing these narratives. You see the trope about toxic masculinity. You see the trope about how black men ain't shit. You know, I can't find a good man. You see another trope. You got a rap video and you got this trope talking about how, you know, a nigga all he's good for is money, get the bag, fuck the nigga, I'm a savage and all this kind of shit. And then you got you got celebrities who themselves who are female who've been involved in domestic violence disputes, but now they're, you know, spokespersons for domestic violence, you know, against black men, and then shaming black men in the process. Like it's a lot to be bombarded with. And then on top of that, to have other black men who are dressed up as women or who identify as women now to come at you and berate you. It's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, men feel like they're living in this Serling, when I mean Serling, I'm talking about like Twilight Zone. It's like it's I feel like I'm in this goddamn Kafka-esque Twilight Zone kind of experience trying to figure out where the center holds. Because on the one hand, black women are telling black men that this is the kind of man they want, you know, like, remember the song "I Need a Soldier," all that kind of shit. But then on the other hand,
on my page the other day. Remember? Did you see
I saw that. That's why I'm referring to it now. Yeah. So you want a manly man 1 minute, then the next minute you need a soft ass dude.
No,
Then you need
we gotta keep it real. Black women want that. Like, no, like, I don't know what these sisters talking about. They lying to themselves, but. And maybe they putting out what's popular or what the media want them to put out. Don't keep in mind that a lot of these media rooms and newsrooms, I got to go back to my book that I read. Is not actually by a black author, but Manufacturing Consent. Propaganda is a tool of control. And so the media is a part of that arm. You familiar with Brother Jared Ball out of Morgan State University?
Yeah, I've listened to his work. I mix what I like. I've seen that.
Yeah.
And I also am aware of what Cleo Monago does. Yeah.
Absolutely. So man, we clear, you know, that's propaganda. That's why I said, you know, we all love this song. Every black woman I know identified with that song, like what it meant, you know what I mean? Like especially if you're a heterosexual black woman like me, like what you like about, you know, a man or whatever. So, and now, you know, that was 10, 15 years ago, that song. And like now we're in a totally different era. Like one of the brothers that I actually went to high school with commented on that video when I showed it. He said, yeah, I noticed what's different about this video is none of the men have on women's clothes. And I thought that was interesting. And I just took that to mean, you mean like the skinny jeans? because my husband hates the skinny jeans too. He's like, okay, he's like, man, I can't find. We go shopping. He was like, man, these are too tight. Like he just not into that look. It don't mean anything. He just not into that look. But
Right.
yeah, like a lot of the young boys, like even my son, like he's totally into it. I guess it's generational. He's not like identifying any kind of way sexually. It's just, that's what you see the rappers wear. I mean, all these tight ass jeans, leggings, or some shit. But anyway, like, yeah, he made that observation. Like, yeah, I noticed, like, yeah, the dress is a lot different in this video back in the day. Did that
Yes.
song come out in 2004, something like that?
It
It's
came
been a
out.
minute.
It came out like about 2004, 05, something like around that era. Early
Yeah,
2000s is when the video
it's the
came out.
early 2000s. Yep.
Yeah, but it was Lil Wayne and Kanye West, man, who created this new trend in jeans and wearing
It
skinny
sure
jeans.
was Lil Wayne.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was them
and
guys
he
that
had on
did that.
baggy jeans in that video, real baggy.
Yeah, but I mean, they were trying to be rock stars, you know what I'm saying? So they were trying to play this androgynous role in order to try to gain fans, and then they probably had stylists telling them to do it, and
That's
you
so
know,
true.
you know how the
Everything
music
is
industry
calculated.
is.
Oh
And,
yeah.
and then this is another thing that people don't understand as well about a lot of these blog pieces that people see. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times that the people who write for blogs are freelance writers, and freelance writers write articles predicated upon what's being called to write
The
about.
views. They
Yeah,
get paid for it. Yeah, clickbait.
so they already have a topic set up like, okay, we want you to talk
Yes,
negatively
that's what I
about
was
black
trying to
men.
get to. Yeah, they got the topic set up. Write this.
Yeah, so and then and oftentimes like when you talk about manufactured consent, you're probably talking about Noam Chomsky and
Yes, that's
his
it.
book.
Noam Chomsky.
Yeah. So the five filters of mass communication. I think that's
Yes.
yeah. But I've posted videos and links to that stuff on my page, my YouTube page. But
Awesome.
look, I'm gonna have. But let's do a quick break and then we're gonna come back. I want to see if some people want to ask you some questions. If they don't, that's cool. But I want to
Okay.
ask you a few more questions. And I know your time is precious. I ain't gonna try to hold you all night. So I'm
Yes.
just gonna go on a quick break real fast, and then we're gonna come right back. All right. I'm gonna
Okay.
invite some people. Okay.
All right.
All right. All right, y'all. We back. I'm the G with a PhD. You're tuned into the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. I'm joined here tonight with Zakiya Sankara-Jabar, an Africana womanist, not a black feminist. And we're trying to, negotiate or have a discussion about some of the issues that are taking place between black men and black women in the political landscape that we're in right now. And, you know, it's just disconcerting, man. It's like it's no hope for the future. It's like we're thrust into a gender war, not of our own making. And oftentimes it just seems to me like what's being set out or established is notions about what black men's motivations are, what their beliefs are, what their desires are, and what their thoughts are, without even consulting with black men, which I think is absolutely deplorable. I mean, especially
It's
if you
not just deplorable, it goes against the idea that black men are patriarchs and have all this fucking power. If y'all were patriarchs and had all this power, there's no way in the world they would be able to do that and not have some repercussions for it. Notice they don't do that to white men. They don't even do it to white women because they know there are literal financial repercussions for talking. I mean, for saying things like that. I think the freest black person I know in this country who literally say whatever the hell they want to about white folks, and there's nothing they can do about it is Minister Farrakhan.
yeah, well, shit, they even hit some sanctions on him, though. I mean, you know what I'm saying? They done killed his YouTube account, done killed his
Oh yeah, I mean,
Facebook.
but Minister Farrakhan was made before YouTube. Let's
Oh,
just
for
be
sure,
clear.
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like YouTube ain't nothing to him. People know who he is, and the community stand tall with him and love him. He don't need YouTube, but no, yeah, like they'll sanction him in all the ways that they can, but they haven't been able to kill the Nation of Islam, which is arguably the largest, black nationalist organization still left in the country. So um, I often think about him, and certainly, my husband's FOI, by the way, and I certainly don't, necessarily always agree with, everything in terms of like just whatever. But that's not my beef. I don't agree 100% with anybody. You know what I mean? But I love that black man because I love the fact that he's free. I love the fact that he tells the truth unapologetically, and you don't see him backing down at
True
all.
indeed. True indeed. I mean, he's had strong opinions about a lot of issues that people have fought him, about over the course of some years. I mean, from anti-Semitism to homophobia to, the
Yeah,
criticism of the black
yeah, but
leadership
it's about
class.
perspective. It's about perspective. Like the whole anti-Semitism thing. Like, you know, I don't have to get into it, but it's like it's about perspective. There's been several times I believe that Minister Farrakhan has asked for like a public discussion, debate with these people of the leaders of these different organizations who oftentimes accuse him of these things. And on an intellectual level, he'll say, I'm quoting the Bible or I'm quoting this or I'm quoting. So I don't want to get too far like into it because I'm not as knowledgeable on that subject or whatever. But from my reading of it, like when I hear what the minister says, I see the fact that this man just has a deep love for his people. I don't see hate is what they try to say. He's a hater. He hates people. He does all this, but there's no history of the Nation of Islam or any of his members doing any harm to the Jewish community. So
Well, I mean, like, let's be honest, man. Black people ain't got no. We have problems with Jews to the extent to which they mischaracterize us and they stereotype us in their motion pictures and in the media that they control, and they do have a substantial chunk of investments in the media, and they know what they're doing. Come on, man, we just have to be honest about that shit. They put out deprecating images of black men in the media, right? And the media has a strong impact on how black people are treated because the media is a substitute for some people. It's the microscope by which they're able to actually look at and analyze the world in which black people live. It's not an accurate portrayal of what black people live in terms of the maribound substantive and the diversity that you see in our lives. But I mean, it is a snapshot to some degree about some elements of black life, right? And so they take that and they run with it as if that's actually all there is to black life.
mm-hmm,
You know,
mm-hmm.
the hard parts, the ghetto parts, the gangster parts. Without understanding the subtle nuances of all of that. And like 50 Cent said, like rap music is the way for white people to come to the safari and to kick it with the animals or to observe the animals without,
Damn,
actually
I
being
didn't
in
know he
danger.
said that. He said that in a rap. Wow.
No, he says that. Well, he says that in his commentary. You know,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah. So
Wow.
50 people take 50 Cent to be this gigantic fool, and sometimes he says things that are ignorant. He's sarcastic, and he's a joker. But I mean, I kind of like that about him. That's just me, you know. But my problem, overall though, is we still live in a culture that's pretty much anti-black misandrist, and we want sisters to support us, but oftentimes we find ourselves in situations in which it seems like the sisters don't support us at all. They treat us like concubines. They treat us like lesser beings. We get
Cultural misorientation. Yeah.
We get treated like utilities.
Mm-hmm.
We get subjected to violence by women, and then the women end up calling the police on us, destroying our careers and undermining, any shred of corporate life that we may have had left. It's just a lot of craziness going on in the black community, and there's a lot of things that black men want to talk about and explore and discuss, but they never get to the table because as
Healing
soon
is
as we start
necessary.
speaking about things that are germane to us and our lives, the go-to is, "Oh, you're a racist." I mean, not a racist, but you're a sexist, patriarchal, homophobic, wannabe white guy, and that's why you don't want to allow black women to lead. And my whole thing is, these people aren't even listening. They don't even care to listen. They don't even want to know what the fuck is going on with black men and what their problems are. That's why you got two ears to listen. But it seems like a lot of
You from
women
St.
aren't
Louis?
listening. They have no interest in listening at all. So how is it possible, man, to get black women to listen when they haven't been listening for the past 40, almost damn near 50 years? And I'm not talking about, you know, the black women who have knowledge or who are nationalists, but the everyday black woman who is out there on the street right now, what can be said to her? And then, like, also though, we also want to see more, Miss Watkins. We want to see more Sankara-Jabars. We want to see more Donna Richards. Who's
Marimba, Ani, yeah.
Marimba Ani. We want to see more Francis Cress Welsing. But they keep shaming y'all. They want to cancel y'all too. You know what I'm saying? So the question is,
You can't
where can we go
cancel
to
me.
find more women who actually give a damn about black men? And then not only that, what can you say to the everyday black woman who's bombarded with this imagery and the iconography about black men not being shit, or being trash, and that black men are regressive, racist, not racist, but sexist abusers, and all of this kind of stuff. Rapists is what I meant to say. Rapists, sexist abusers. Like, what do you do to combat that?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, that's a hard question because I'm not around it. I'm literally not around any women who think like that. I mean, I literally, in my life and in my sphere, I literally only see that on social media. So when I think about like women in my family, when I think about my friends, black women who are my friends, like I don't see that. Now, sure, are there black women who have, of course, said, well, he ain't shit because they done broke up or had a divorce. Yeah, of course, that happens. But is that like the way that they feel about like black men just writ large? Nah, because most of these women are connected to black men. Many of the sisters in my circle, well, not many, several of them are married to black men. Some of them have sons, right? And so we connect, on that level. Do we get together like y'all do and talk about, what might be happening or what's stressing you out about your partner right now, but it's normal stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's, the communication that I have with my family and my friends is not about like canceling my son or canceling my husband. Like that's some that's social media shit. Like it really is. Like, I mean, now do people break up and get divorced and stuff like that? Yeah. Do you fall out even with your brother, your cousin, or somebody? Sometimes somebody of the opposite sex? Yeah, but most of the time we coming back together. We family. You know what I mean? But the other part that I wanted to get back to, and I don't want this to be lost, is that and you hit on this, is that we have to heal. There is a lot of happening within our community. The bi-directional violence is real. If I'm honest, when I was younger, I was in a bi-directional violent relationship, marriage. My first marriage was that way. And I've never scapegoated my ex-husband as him being the only problem. I was certainly a part of the problem. But here's the understanding. I don't think I've ever told this story publicly. Is that we were both young, we were in our early 20s, and we both had very traumatic childhoods. I had a very traumatic childhood. And so I had not healed from all of the issues coming into adulthood from my childhood. It wasn't until I actually went to professional counseling to understand myself and to get a handle on myself, because I was very violent. And so I actually see violence in our community as a public health issue because of trauma, untreated trauma. I was born in 1981, so clearly in Cleveland, Ohio. So my family, my mother actually was directly impacted by the crack cocaine epidemic. If you ever heard the game, the rapper story, that's a lot like my story. Both his parents was fucked up, and both of mine was. I was actually end up being raised in the South, in the rural South, by my great grandparents because neither one of my parents raised me. And so I have a lot. I had a lot of issues coming into that relationship. And my ex-husband is not my place to tell his story, but he had some similar issues. It wasn't the same, but it was similar, and we just didn't need to be together. We had our son together, and that's it. But unfortunately, our relationship, even to this day, as co-parents, are still not where it needs to be. And a part of it is unforgiveness, rightfully so. He would probably, love to be a listener to this. I'm sure people listening to this probably like, I couldn't imagine you ever being that way, because he got his stories, right? Not just about me. I mean, he's been with other women, but oftentimes what I find is that when we're unhealed, and I don't know how people will feel about this, but this is where I'm at in that journey. Sometimes you attract what you are. You know what I mean? Like that whole book, The Secret, or whatever. And it's not about victim blaming. To me, it's just my understanding of it, because the husband that I have now is actually very complementary to who I am. We're like yin and yang. I have a very strong type A kind of personality, and he's a strong masculine man in his own right, but he's also very respectful and also very patient man. When it comes to me and our children together. So I was just a different person when I met him, right? I carried a different kind of energy when I met him. So I just think that at a base of it, when you say, how do you get Black people or Black women to stop beefing and saying all these different things? So a lot of these systems got to heal. I'm telling you, the trauma that exists in Black communities, especially those of us that was born in the 80s, the early 80s, during the rise of the crack epidemic, we don't talk about that enough. We just grow up, and those of us who are experiencing some semblance of success, and like we just act like that shit never happened, but we carrying scars.
Yeah, y'all 80s babies, man. Look, y'all fucked up, man. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with y'all, man. I'm just keeping it 100, man. Y'all 80s babies got some serious shit going on, man. I was born in the heavenly 70s and shit.
Yeah, my husband was too.
It's like, okay, it wasn't a fucking worry in the world. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Everything was like, when I reminisce about it, it's just like, damn, I didn't have all of these damn issues. It was like,
I'm telling you,
let me just go back. Like,
you got
we would just go to the park and shit. We go to the movies and popcorn, and the neighborhood was okay to a certain extent. But then when the 80s kicked in, everything changed. And then but I had already been brought up under that different kind of regime. You know what I'm saying? During the 70s, and not to say the 70s were perfect, but I was born before the women's liberation movement actually took off. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because you had the 68.
You were born in 71?
Yeah, 71.
So I mean, that when you said that, that's why you're actually the same age as the brother that I mentioned earlier, the one that passed away. You're the same age. He was born April 2nd, 1971.
Damn.
Yeah. 10 years older than me. Yeah.
Yeah, but the whole thing is, we can't talk all night. I know you got to go, but I appreciate you coming here and having a conversation with me. Hopefully, I can get you to come back.
Absolutely.
And if people want to find you, is there any way? Do you have any social media sites where you talk regularly and you make appearances and do stuff like that?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Facebook. I think I have the follow option on my profile, but you can definitely follow me on Twitter. That's actually my Twitter handle in the name there. If people can see that at Zakiya Sankara-Jabar, that's Twitter. And I'm also on Instagram. And it's in my Instagram handle is my whole name, but no dash, and it's all together. You know how Instagram is, everything is together. So I don't have any dashes or dots. It's just Zakiya Sankara-Jabar is my handle. If you put in Zakiya in Instagram, it'll show up, and my picture is not like a animation or anything. It's an actual picture of me. So
so they know what you look like here. So if they look for you on Facebook and they want to follow you, they can do it that way. And you post a lot of stuff on Facebook. You come on from time to time and you give opinion pieces. You come in and say what you feel.
Yep.
And look, this is the Green Gorilla Channel. This is a place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Tonight, though, I have a woman by the name of Zakiya Sankara-Jabar. She's an Africana womanist, and she's telling us that not all black women think alike. There are some black women who actually respect black men still. I mean, look, and let me just say this. Nobody's going to be in 100% agreement with anybody in the black community to begin with. There's
Right.
going to be disagreement
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. But
Right.
it's nice though to at least to some degree have a conversation with somebody who's a woman that's not trying to tear you down. And look,
Right.
I ain't gonna say that sometimes I don't go in hard on women. I do go in hard on them, especially on the Green Gorilla channel. If I see some
Mm-hmm.
fuckery, I'm calling it out. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because I think black men have to stand up for themselves, in the midst of what's happening contemporarily in our culture. And if we don't stand up for ourselves, I feel like nobody's going to stand up for us.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like we're alone. And so we have to do something, in order
Mm-hmm.
to assert, our agency and to assert our
Well,
independence and our autonomy.
let's come together and stand up for who pulling the strings. Remember, I talked about the manipulation. Like
Yeah, yeah,
whoever's doing the manipulation with both of us. Let's try to figure out a way to come together to cut them strings. That's how I feel about it.
for sure, for sure. I've been on the knowledge, man, from a long time ago, man. 71. I was born by the time I went to college, you know what I'm saying? That's like 80 89. So I'm reading Chiak Anta Diop,
Oh
Theophilo
yeah,
Benya, Joseph Ben Yakin, and I'm reading, uh, George E. James Stolen Legacy. I'm reading all this shit in college. I'm already on the knowledge, you know what I'm
you went to
saying?
a wonderful college. As these kids ain't reading that today.
No, but I mean it wasn't assigned in college though. It wasn't.
Oh okay, oh okay.
Okay.
I was
But we
about to
got a
say.
guest though wants to ask you a question though, I think. So I'm gonna let him do it.
Oh,
Uh
okay, cool.
Okay. Chaos Rain, welcome to the show. What's good,
Good
brother?
evening, Green Grill, and good evening, Miss Jabbar. This is a really interesting and good show. It's rare to find women that talk about scholarship like what you did, Miss, in regards to Boom, Amos Wilson. I own all Amos Wilson, but even the last one. And I really own Carbone. I've been hearing about him. Maybe I should invest and look into his work.
Yes.
My question, moving forward, from regards to, because you're a woman, you can speak for perspective from women. What in regards a black woman could do in regards, I guess, re-educating their daughters moving forward in the 21st century?
That's a good question. I actually have a daughter. She's 6, and I was just talking about this to my husband, and I was like, "Wow, I would love to have." My daughter's name is Asada. We named her after Asada Shakur, and I was like, I would love to have like her involved in some young ladies programs, but I was like, I feared I'm actually gonna have to start one because a lot of the programs for young black women, at least that I see in my periphery, are not funded by people in our community, and they actually socialize young women, I believe, to be from a feminist perspective, and to socialize them actually against their daddies and brothers, and socialize them against the men that they love, like that they're in community with, that they're in the same home with. And so that's actually something I'm personally exploring, is like, because I mean, I've started an organization before, and I have a lot of work on my plate. So I'm like, geez, am I going to have to start some kind of program for my daughter and other black girls, to have like a space that's just for them, but also a space where they're not being giving sort of these anti-black narratives and toxic narratives about men in their community. So
Okay.
I guess I'll say it's a work in progress.
All right. I guess that's the only question I ask right now. I'll try to follow you on IG and any other links. I hope Green Girl will leave it in the description. Thanks again, Green
Okay,
Girl.
All
awesome.
right. Thank you, Chaos Rain, for joining us, bro.
Yep.
Appreciate it. All right. So look, we're about to wrap this thing up. Again, Zakiya Sankara. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Appreciate that. And
No problem.
look, if you are a newcomer to the show, please like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and man, I want y'all to have a good afternoon. Not a good afternoon, but a
Good
good evening.
evening.
And don't get too stressed out about what's going on in politics, man. That
Oh
shit don't
man,
matter no way, you know. I don't know who's going to be the president, but I'm assuming it's going to be Biden. You
Biden.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm assuming it's going to be Biden because of all the chicanery that's going on with all this
Oh
counting
man.
down and tabulating of these votes. But you
Right.
know, black people, man, one way or the other, ain't shit gonna change for us unless we
gotta
make a
organize.
change and start pressuring these politicians to give us something. You know,
Yep.
so I think that Ice Cube is right in that regard. Like at
Me
some
too.
point, you got to start making demands on these politicians and be invested in the political process as an ongoing process and not just as a tabulation procedure. Because that ain't where all the work is getting done. That's not where the influence is happening. It's
Right.
happening, it's happening at the organizing level. So
That's right.
so look,
All
y'all,
right,
man.
brother.
All right, man. Thank you for joining me. Have a good evening.
Absolutely. Take care.
And yeah, all y'all be peaceful, man. One. And thank you for all the donations that y'all gave me tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I'll see y'all tomorrow, man. I got a show for y'all already designed and planned for tomorrow. So y'all be peaceful. One.
Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Yeah, 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 yeah. Uh-huh, 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 uh-huh. I'm a phenomenon, I shine like Orion. I came in a rap gang to smack it up like Heron, transform it like Megatron. Wait, like Yamatron, most rappers are some peons. I'ma starve them like Ramadan, I'm troublesome. You don't really want no troublesome, cause I pop guns like hood chick, do bubble gum. I been dumb, gon' stay that way till kingdom come. When the sun I'm at, unleash a demon, a polygon. I'm heavy, son, got more knowledge than Farrakhan. More gang than Cap, comma that bitch, some name done one. Stay lit off some Shandan, maybe about they rum. Stay drink to some Nordstrom, call me that Dapper Don. More violent than Genghis Khan. The members of Taliban, niggas faker than silicon. Get hit like a .com, like soldiers in Lebanon. I'm bringing that red rum. When I get through with you, son, you gon' think I'll see rap. Run! I carry weight like a heavyweight. Bake more cakes than patty cake. Watch the fiend salivate. You a lightweight, bantamweight. Better contemplate. If you violate, make you levitate to the pearly gates. I fascinate when I conversate from the show me state where these niggas love to hate and hot murder rate. What a waste. But this flow is just a taste of God's grace. Shining this light in the ugly place. In the prophecy, got more wisdom than Socrates. Philosophies, you don't really want no parts of me. Can't you see? I'm slicker than Mephistopheles, stronger than Hercules, more dangerous than Damocles. To MCs, trying me pretty please. I wait up they white tees, knock them out they wallabies. Now they touch my deliries. For coming up shorter than little C's when I break out the killer bees. I study music by Karkasi, hit chicks look like Ashanti. When I'm breaking them off, they yell at odd poppy. You rappers is sloppy, you can't stop me with that. We can sorry, copy, malarkey. I'm a monster like Frankenstein, rock harder than Palestine. You slimes, dropping dimes, and snake and serpentine. Take, stand and see me glow like Nas with his big shine. All you haters cold in it, cold sores need calamine. But my hot shit like red brick hitting your head. Leave the sour taste up in your mouth like lemon heads, like Simply Red. Wasted some years up in the feds when I touched down. Oh, dirty red, that gave me head. I got higher vision for higher living. I'm highly driven. I'm acting women like it's some sort of sick religion. Driving an Impala, sitting on it, these 20 inches, and they spinning just like the planets in the solar system.
Black country people, over in Africa, down to America. Black country people, we make all the world go round and around, yes. Black country people, up in Canada, down to Jamaica. Black country people.